This is Cubs Radio.
Cubs Radio.
Cubs Radio.
Good, ladies and gents, welcome to the Mets Beat podcast live from the biggest comedy club on Long Island. I'm your host, B-Mel, sitting next to the one and only D-Train. We have a jam-packed show for you spanning over the next 30 minutes. We're going to talk Mets. We're going to talk Yankees. And if we have some time, we'll talk a little Mayweather-McGregor. But first, D-Train, how you living, buddy boy?
Not too bad. What's going on, B-Mel?
I'm doing pretty good, man. How was work? You got over here quickly?
Yeah, not too bad other than, spilling a cup of coffee on myself to start the day off. That's how you want to get it done right,
Thank God you didn't have white pants on.
I'm currently wearing white pants.
Oof, awful.
They were white.
So you got to go back to the dry cleaners the day after you got it, right?
Yeah, I'll give them my little punch card.
You're unbelievable.
3 more and I get 1 free.
Yeah, right.
No.
That's great. So how much did it cost you to get those pants done?
That's only a few bucks, like, I don't know, $7.
You think they'll be able to get those stains out?
I hope so.
I'm sure they've dealt with worse, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if Graz has ever been to a...
Ooh.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Ooh, you're really going after Gotham Gold. Limo talk coming on right after this at 8 p.m. So let's start with my Mets and the fact that Neil Walker went down last night in what looked like to be a gunshot wound. And I'll talk to you about that later because I got yelled at on Twitter. Cabrera hit the DL with the thumb injury, and we just continue to see Mets players fall like flies. What's your take on all the injuries?
I mean, it's just unfortunate. It's almost seemed like it was a ticking time bomb. The Mets made that push for the pennant in 2015. They didn't quite get there, but 2016 they win the pennant, and I'm sorry, was that vice versa? 2015 they made it to the World Series.
2015,
That's
yep,
right.
I remember it vividly.
Yeah.
Watching the loss in the stands.
Yeah, but it can't keep going forever. Obviously something's gonna go wrong, and unfortunately it's piled on for the Mets. So hopefully they just keep digging. They're still in second. The Nationals are rolling. They're still in second. They got over the Phillies. They got over the Braves and the Marlins. So they just got to keep it going and see where it can go from there.
So, I mean, you make a good point where we're 8.5 games back, playing the Nationals tonight, so that could change. My big caveat was we had to win the series against the Braves. We had to win the series against the Cubs to make this at all relevant going into the Nationals. If we did that, and we did that, those were the first 2 hurdles. We got that done. Now we're going into the Nationals for 4 games. Now, on one hand, I'd like to say we'd be lucky to split this series with the Nationals and kind of take the rest of the long season and try to build up. I'd love to go for the win and take 3 out of 4. But I got to tell you, I'm very impressed that we won 2 series going into this huge National series. But let's talk about the bigger question in the room, which is Ahmed Rosario. The Super 2 deadline has passed. The team is riddled with DL bodies. After winning both of those series against the Braves and the Cubs, what better time to bring up the number 1 prospect in the Mets farm system? He'll have no pressure to be the savior like he would have if we called him up a couple of weeks ago when the team was absolutely floundering. And maybe he gives us a Conforto-like spark like they had in 2015. Wouldn't you agree that now is the time to bring this kid up?
If now isn't the time, I don't understand when a justifiable time would be, because the guy in front of him is Jose Reyes, correct?
Right.
So he's hitting below 200. He's below the Mendoza line.
Yep.
He's played fairly every game, over 60 games, and he's hitting under 200. So there's just no reason to not do it other than being afraid of him not being ready. If they know for sure, they're scouts, they don't feel confident. I don't know what his AAA numbers are. I don't know how he's
Last time I
doing.
checked, he was hitting .335 in the minors.
And how's his glove?
His glove is immaculate. His glove is unbelievable. They're projecting him to be a perennial all-star, and they're projecting him to be a Gold Glove shortstop. How are you not bringing up Ahmed Rosario right this second?
There's no reason not to.
You have Jose Reyes that listen, his natural position is shortstop. I know he's not the Reyes of 06. I know he's still speedy. But there's no reason that you can't put the future of the Mets up there. And like you said, you don't want a guy that's hitting close to the Mendoza line, under the Mendoza line. Right now, he's batting 7th. He's batting 7th right now. So you're not losing anything. You're not losing it. Forget Graz right now, okay? We can talk limo talk later, great, ladies and gentlemen. Graz is trying to interrupt the first Mets Beat podcast going on right now. We'll get to his bacon-filled whatever later. But, I mean, it did not beat a dead horse. Don't you think Ahmed needs to be called up, like, immediately?
Yeah, you might as well let him get his reps in now. It's not like they're, a game and a half out of first where you're throwing him into a really clutch situation where he might not come up big and he might struggle and he might lose his confidence. So let him come up. It's not a do-or-die situation right now, but they are still in it. So if you can get that boost from a kid like that, I couldn't understand why you don't do it.
Yeah, I don't get it either. And, like you said, in 2015, we made that incredible run to the World Series. And part of the reason that we were able to make that run is Conforto and the spark that he gave to us. Now, he dipped a little bit last season. This season, I mean, he's an absolute all-star. Conforto's got to be an all-star, right?
Absolutely. Conforto is probably the starting, what is he, a left fielder?
Yeah.
He's probably the starting left fielder. I believe he is leading the National League in votes.
I mean, he's got to be an all-star starter. I don't know who else can beat him out. Last night, the Mets took a nice win. They hammered down on the Cubs after getting their ass whooped a night before. So, like I said, I'm proud that we were able to pull that series and move on.
Now, DeGrom had a complete game, right?
DeGrom finally had a complete game. Harvey pitched last night, got absolutely hammered. He's headed to the DL. So now he's headed to the DL for a couple weeks. And Terry Collins said last night that he saw Harvey's velocity sitting at 89 miles per hour. And that kind of clued him in to say, hey, Dan Warthen, who's the pitching coach, what's going on with him? Was that a changeup? He goes, Dan said, no, that's a fastball. So right then and there, TC said, it's time to take him out. And they had him checked out today, and apparently he's got a strain in the shoulder, and he's going to be missing a couple weeks. Again, we as Met fans, we just have to come up to the point that this is just not the same Harvey. As we saw a couple years back, he's just not the same Harvey. And I got to tell you, between Harvey and Wheeler, I am absolutely done. They are costing us start after start.
And it's kind of great that it's happening now because you didn't want to have them have a great year now. You re-sign them as free agents, you're stuck into this big deal, and then you get what you're getting now. So, it's kind of like you're glad that it happened a little earlier than expected.
Right, and I think that's, seeing the glass half full. I am a little worried because I do think that change of scenery, change of league can have a positive effect on pitchers. And I'll be pissed if somebody, inevitably, if we don't re-sign Harvey and he finds his form with another team, I mean, that's going to be heartbreaking for Mets fans.
Sometimes that's all it takes. Look at Ivan Nova with the Pittsburgh Pirates right now. He was with the Yankees for how many years, and he showed us the signs of how good he could be, but he linked up with their pitching coach, and now He's having quality start after quality start. Again, still not lights out, not consistent, but, it is getting a little more consistent as far as the quality starts are concerned.
Absolutely. And then, you know what? You can even look at a guy like R.A. Dickey. Did terrible, got to the Mets, got a Cy Young. Signed that big he got traded for Syndergaard and Darno, and then he's not doing that good in Toronto.
No, I believe he's with Atlanta now.
Yeah, so change of scenery. Bartolo's over there in Atlanta as well. Listen.
Isn't he on the DL? He's got.
Yeah, Bartolo finally got hurt, and I think that's a good call because I think Sandy doesn't get enough credit for the. Listen, I thought we pushed it one year too far on Bartolo.
3 years ago?
Yeah, right. But I got to tell you, man, we soaked the best you can get out of a 44-year-old overweight Bartolo.
I thought in
Colon.
2011 the Yankees got the last that he had to offer, and then he went to Oakland, and he still proved that he could pitch, and then I believe he ended up
then
with the
he
Mets
lived in Puerto Rico for 6 years, and then the Mets
No,
came
his
and got
second
him.
stint with the Yankees. He had two different stints.
Absolutely crazy. So I do think that credit where credit's deserved. Give it to Sandy for kind of being like, listen, we got as much as we could with Bartolo. I was, that 2015 World Series when I saw Bartolo Colon in, I'm like, this is over. He's going to get absolutely hammered because I never saw a team like the Royals who were just hitting they were just
1 through 9.
slap hitting
Yeah.
1 through 9.
Blue pit, stolen base. Blue pit, stolen base. Score from second.
Motto, man, they were like little gnats on the baseball. It was unbelievable.
Laying bunts down and everything.
And that's the way a national team is supposed to be, and there it is as an American League team.
I mean, when you lose in Game 7 against the Giants like they did back in 2014, you learn what it's like to grind out a 7-game World Series as an American League team in, I believe the National League did have home field advantage. Oh, no, they did not because Game 7 was at the Royals.
Right.
So they did have home field advantage, but, to be able to dig that deep against the Giants, who were, with Bruce Bochy, a very well-established postseason team, very good with pinch hitting and starting pitchers coming out of the bullpen like Bumgarner did, how many times that World Series. I think they were really poised to beat the Mets in 2015.
I mean, I just thought, I'm a bit, like I said, National League teams should be gap hitters, singles, doubles, runs scored, and, that's what we want. We don't want home runs, but unfortunately our team wasn't built that way, and really that's the way the Royals were. I was raised, National League Baseball is pitching and defense. And we had the pitching, and that pitching, as young as it was, should have propelled us against the Royals, but I got to tell you, the Royals were the better team.
Yeah, you're giving up leadoff inside the park home runs or leadoff triples, whatever that was.
They hit our best asset. They were able to destroy, and Daniel Murphy didn't help us at all, and that still stings. Getting rid of Murphy, that absolutely.
I mean, not only is
stings.
it not keeping him, but it's him staying in the same division. So he's playing
staying in the same
games.
division, having an MVP type run, and then when you talk about all these injuries to the Mets right now, imagine you had Murphy just as a healthy body. Forget the fact that he can lead the league
Just
and
to
be an MVP hitter.
Right, getting through the dog days. And I mean, with the Nationals, he was just that one last thing that they needed. They have Harper and Zimmerman and Rendon and Espinosa, and they had a solid core. They really just lacked in the bullpen. But, when you're making a move for Jonathan Papelbon after the year 2010, he's probably not going to do too well for you.
And it sounds like that there's been a lot of riff in the Nationals dugout about the bullpen. The bullpen has been an absolute atrocity for the Nationals. They would have a lot more wins if it wasn't for that bullpen. And it seems like there's a little strife that we're hearing from inside, which is a good thing for the Mets. But it shows that they have a couple chinks in the armor. And if the Mets can pull out 3 out of 4 here, we're in a different position. We're closer to first in our division than we are to the wild card.
That's right.
I mean, that's absolutely unbelievable. And listen, not for nothing, I remember a couple weeks ago we did the Limo Talk show, and I said, I'm done with this team. I mean,
You said it was the first time you tuned out of a game. You were watching the game and you tuned out.
That was the first time. I don't remember what it was, but I was just so...
It may have been against the Padres.
It was, against a team, it was the Padres, against a team that you're supposed to win. And for the first time, I was just, that's it. I can't believe this is going to be a lost season. And the last couple of weeks, they pulled me back. And the season this is only half of the season so far. We're not even at the All-Star break. There is plenty of time to go on a run where you win 15 out of 20.
Absolutely.
And now all of a sudden, it's a different ballgame.
Yeah, I mean, the Yankees did the same thing last year. We saw how they faltered, and it was the most horrific baseball I'd ever seen played in my whole life. I've been alive for 20 years, so all I've known is winning Yankee teams with the exception of 08,
Lucky
13.
you son of a...
Yeah, exactly. But, seeing what happened last year, but in September, they were 2 games out of the East. 2 games out of the East. And they had 3 games against Boston where they lost 2 or 3.
Right.
So, anything can really happen. It's 162 games. We're not even at the midway point. So, you just got to keep your fingers crossed, hope that, these guys get healthy or these young guys can really perform, because that's what it took for the Yankees last year. A-Rod finally retired. They made all the trades, and they decided we're making the push for the future. Up came Judge. Up came Austin. Bird was hurt. Sanchez came up, All
right,
it's been unbelievable.
So, before we go into the Yankees, which we're obviously going to do, what do you think about the Cubs faltering so much? Do you think they make the playoffs? I mean, do you think they repeat?
I think you said there's a way the Mets can win 15 of 20. I think the Cubs are a team that can win, 40 of 30.
You think so?
Yeah. I mean, 40 of 30. I'm sorry. Go 30 and 10 over the course of 40.
That would be pretty
That'd
fantastic.
be very incredible if they could
automatically win the pennant right there.
No, but I mean, they do have the pieces. It's just a matter of how taxed are they after that World Series? I mean, even I know Chapman's not with the Cubs anymore, but he's been on the DL twice now. It's two different stints. So I think the fatigue on the guys that played every game last year and played deep into the postseason is really starting to show its effects now. Yeah, I think they make the postseason because there's 2 wild cards. It's just a matter of how far they get into it.
There's 2 wild cards, and they're 2 games behind Milwaukee in the standings. So it's not like they're buried.
Right.
It's not like they're buried. And like you said, this is a dangerous team. This is a very, very dangerous team. And they're very similar to the Mets. They're just younger. So they're built as home run hitters. If their pitching comes around like the Mets, they could do some damage. And like you said, you got 2 wild card spots.
And in 2014, the Cubs and Royals were both that second wild card team. So they played the wild card game on the road. Both won it. The Royals beat Oakland. San Francisco beat Pittsburgh that year. Pittsburgh always loses in the wild card game. And then they both went to Game 7 of the World Series against each other. So I hate when people say, the wild. I think the wild card game is a bad concept in the sense that how you're going to put 162 games on one. But I don't think you can count out that last week of September when there's 6 teams, 2 games out. If you're the 6th team, why not? Why not you?
So, listen, I agree with you. And listen, the Mets saw the effects of the World Series and pushing Harvey in 2015. And look what happened in 2016. So I don't think it's far off, like you said. Maybe there's a little layover. Maybe there's a little hangover for the Cubs, going forward.
And, I mean, they played deep into the postseason in 2015 before the Mets swept them. So, the Cubs have really been taxed for the last few years, just like the Mets have been.
Okay, so let's talk Yankees. We're both in agreement that Aaron Judge is the greatest Yankee of all time, right?
I would not agree with you on that statement just yet.
This dude is 25 years old. He's hitting .338. He's leading the league in jacks at 22. He's got 49 ribbies. I mean, that's a season for a lot of players.
He's leading the league in Triple Crown, all 3 Triple Crown categories.
This dude can not only be MVP, he can get the Triple Crown. I mean, your
Rookie of the Year. Even though he played last year, he is eligible for Rookie of the Year.
Rookie of the Year, you gotta be as a Yankee fan.
And the most astounding thing about it is he's not just hitting these tasers over, the short porch, just getting out there. He is hitting these balls
any ballpark
that you have never seen before. Like, he cleared the left field bleachers at Yankee Stadium. Now, Sanchez had hit a home run over the bullpen earlier.
Right.
It was the first row of the bleachers in left field, 450 feet, and everyone's, wow, what a shot. Judge clears the left field bleachers for 495 feet. Just one day after he set the record for the hardest exit velocity in Major League history.
Right.
So what this guy is doing is not only never before seen, but it's fun to watch. After last year, watching the Yankees falter the way they did and being a diehard fan the way I am, and luckily I had the chance to see Judge last year play for the Scranton Yankees in AAA before he ever went to the Bronx for the first time.
Right.
I'm sure he had been there as a person, just not as a player.
Right.
It was really great getting to see him play, and I'm pretty sure he had a homer. I know he had a leadoff double, not a leadoff double, but a double in his first at bat. So, it's really been fun to not only see him, but, see Sanchez heat up again. And, our starting pitching's doing fairly well. Severino finally pitching like the ace that he's, supposed to be. And I think the pieces are finally falling into place. It might be a little early, though. The Yankees had 2019 was the ETA for this championship team.
Right.
But when you have a lead in the AL East and you're hitting the All-Star break and you know what you need for a championship as the front office with our farm system, the way it's stacked right now, you just keep Gleyber Torres as your untouchable, Clint Frazier as your untouchable,
right?
Which are 2 guys that we got with that the Chapman and Miller trades last year. I think we can really make a run this year.
I would agree with you. I think that going into the break, if you guys are up in the division, I don't think there's any question that Cash goes for it. And, listen, I know that Hal isn't like George. I do think that they understand the Yankee tradition. They understand the fan base. I think Hal's an insecure guy, and he'll listen to the media saying we need to buy some new players. We really, really need to make the playoffs. And I think they become buyers and not sellers. And we didn't think that this was going to happen.
Yeah, and I mean, they are rebuilding. Technically, they are in the rebuilding phase.
Sure.
So, so it makes it so difficult to make that decision. It's like, how do you ship off these young guys when you know what they can be in the future? But then again, how can you not go for it when it's just, you can taste it? It is literally right there. It's just one. I believe it's a starting pitcher. maybe a first baseman, because if Greg Bird comes back and he plays anywhere like the way he played previously, which was horrible this season, then we do need a first baseman because Chris Carter does not cut it. Matt Holliday is a solid DH. He does not cut it at first base either.
Right.
Run prevention is one of the biggest things, especially when it comes to the World Series and playing in those National League parks. You got to win those games.
I would agree with you. I don't think it's time to get a first baseman before this season started and before we, knew where the Yankees were going to be at this time. I was a big believer in Bird. I was a believer.
I still am.
Believer in Sanchez, and I was a believer in Judge. Just to bring it full circle, I think it's absolutely unbelievable that I don't want to call him the Sanchez because it just reminds me of a former Jet quarterback.
I hate saying it too.
But it's unbelievable that Gary Sanchez can have a run like he did last year, and it almost doesn't even matter. Because of what Judge is doing right now.
Yeah.
It's obsolete.
And he's not a candidate
point
for Rookie of the Year this year like Judge is. Now, Judge only had a certain amount of at-bats last year, which was not as many as Sanchez.
How unbelievable. Now, this is a guy, Gary Sanchez, basically took New York by storm last year. And now it doesn't matter.
That's what they held against him was the amount of games he did it in. They were like, all right, 20 home runs in 60 games, that's great. But it was 60 games. What can you do over 162?
Right.
So here we are, the beginning of this season, he struggles, he tears the bicep, he comes back and he eats up, but Judge has stolen the show for sure. And Judge is just the character, The Yankees do have a lot of Spanish players and they do have a large Spanish fan base, but I feel like Judge is just that franchise MLB transcendent player. And watching him stand over the short porch, his head peeks over at a good 2 feet.
It's unbelievable. How tall is he?
He's like, I'm pretty sure he's 7 foot. If not, he's got to be 6'11".
No, I think he's 6'6".
Maybe he's like 6'7" then. He's a large man. I saw him rob a home run without leaping. He just lifted his glove above the short porch.
He's 6'7". This is a big dude. This is a big dude wearing number 99 for the New York Yankees.
Yeah, they got their own section now out in right field. It's the judges' chambers.
Right.
He's really taken the whole world by storm. And it's sad to see how everyone, stopped watching after last year. So they didn't get to, see him last year. Everyone got their first taste of Judge this year. But, it goes to show who the true diehard fans were. Who was watching last year when the Yankees were not 18 games out at any point, but, when they were 10 games under 500 and really struggling in the beginning of the year.
Absolutely incredible. The Yankees I think they picked 15th in the MLB draft last week. Was it this week or last week? I don't even remember.
It was only a few days ago, so it was this week.
Yeah, it was. And I got to tell you, you hit the nail on the head with their farm system. They can afford to trade some pieces and get a pitcher or two in here, maybe shore up the bullpen. I don't know. I think they're well on their way. They're a young team, and they're arguably the best team in New York.
See, and I think the saddest thing is that we've had a championship every decade except, I think, the 80s. Pretty much since the turn of the century.
Right.
And we haven't had one since 2009. And I think, you talk about Hal not being George. I think that's what's got to make Hal itch is, it's almost been a full 10 years. Once you hit that 10-year anniversary of not having a championship, I don't want to have to go through that. I would really hope we can get one before the 2010 decade closes out. Right now, even, the Mets have a pennant. So, you guys got bragging rights on us right now. So.
I mean, listen, I don't think we do have bragging rights as a Met fan. You guys have, 27 championships? We have 2. I haven't seen one in my lifetime. I was 2 the last time they were. I didn't even know what baseball was, so I don't count that. I've never seen one. Pennant doesn't mean anything to me. We need to get that World Series. We really do. And what will be a saving grace for me and for the Mets is if we can string together some consecutive years in the playoffs, like the Braves with 14 straight years in the playoffs. I'd like to see that for the Mets. At least we're contending.
Right.
And every once in a while, you go deep and maybe you win a couple.
And that's how it was for the Yankees. They went from 1995 through 2007, made the playoffs every year. And, yeah, they made it out with 4 championships. But still, look at the amount of times they lost. They're 27-time world champions. They've won 40 pennants. They've lost 13 World Series, which is the most all time. So, you got to take the good with the bad. Do you have, real quick, without even trying to think, could you put together an all-time Mets team, all 9 positions?
We could go for it.
Yeah?
Shoot.
For every position, we'll bounce back. We'll go Met, Yankee, Met, Yankee.
Could do that.
Start left, center, right, and then we'll go the infield. And a pitcher and catcher.
Shoot, man. I don't know, man. I like my team the way it is right now.
Come on. There's nobody from the history of the New York Mets that could play a better shortstop right now?
Jose Reyes, 06.
Well, I mean, I guess you are picking an older version of Reyes.
You know what I mean? I don't think that the Mets have the deep history like the Yankees do. Like, the Yankee conversation is so much better than
Yeah, I mean,
than
it
the
does
Mets.
go back. All right, so the Mets' inaugural season was like 60-something, like 67, I believe. So the Yankees probably have a solid 40, 50 years on them if you're, talking about modern baseball only.
Right.
But, I mean, I guess there's not those big guys, but Strawberry.
So you're going to have Tom Terrific, no doubt. You got Strawberry. You got Keith Hernandez at first. You got, do you put David Wright at third base? Probably.
Yeah, well,
probably.
if you can't think of someone better than him.
So right field, you got Strawberry.
You sure you don't want Juan Uribe back?
No. Center field, you get the Mole, Carlos Beltran. Cleon Jones for left field, maybe. You got to put Wright at third base. Shortstop, you have to put Reyes. Was the most electrifying player for years. Second base, probably Edgardo Alfonso. First, we said Keith Hernandez. Davey Johnson is your manager, and catcher Piazza. You got to put Piazza there.
Of course, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Go ahead. What's your all-time Yankees?
Oh, I guess left field would be Mantle. Right field would be Reggie Jackson.
Okay.
Center field, best Yankee center field. I guess Mantle would be the center fielder, and left field I would put I don't even know. I guess Roger Maris. I know he didn't play left, but just shoving outfielders out there.
Right. Where you fitting Joe D in?
What was Jolton Joe? He was a second baseman, I believe.
Joe D?
Yeah, or was he an outfielder?
No, I think Joe D was an outfielder. I don't know. You're the Yankee fan.
Yeah, I am, but I don't really remember what position he hit.
Oh, you got to remember Joe D.
Games.
You're killing the entire
Yeah,
podcast.
I mean, he hit in 56 straight games. Obviously, everyone knows that, but...
he dated Marilyn Monroe.
I think I would even plug A-Rod at third, winning an MVP in a World Series and all the home runs that he hit, all the milestones that he hit. Obviously, the captain's at shortstop.
Right.
Second baseman. Whew. I'll pause there. First baseman goes deep, and I'm not going to give it to Don Mattingly because he never won a ring, so I'll hold that against him.
Right.
Yogi Berra would definitely be the catcher. And Babe Ruth's definitely in the outfield.
You'd think
Unless
so.
I have a DH.
Joe D was an outfielder, so,
Joe D, Mickey Mantle, and Babe Ruth. And Reggie Jackson's off the team.
Well, you have a DH. No,
I have a DH?
You put Reggie as the DH.
I can make Babe Ruth pitch and still have a great
Who's
lineup.
your catcher?
Yogi Berra. It'd be close between him and Posada as far as Posada's stats on the team are concerned. He has the most, home runs as a Yankee catcher, most hits as a Yankee catcher, I believe.
Right.
But Yogi Berra, 10 rings. Come on, 10 rings? What? Could you imagine having 10 rings? Every finger, like your thumbs, would have rings, World Series rings. And, not to mention that before he made his Major League debut, he fought in Pearl Harbor and D-Day. The late, great Yogi Berra.
Right.
So, yeah, I still don't have a first or second baseman. Why can't I think of a good Yankee second baseman? Cano pissed me off. He wasn't a good career, He didn't have a career with us, really.
Right. So
Chuck Knobloch's not deserving. What's up?
No, you can't put Chuck Knobloch there. I was gonna go to.
I'll go Alfonso Soriano.
I was gonna go to pitcher. Why not? Why aren't you putting Robinson Cano at second base?
Because he never. All right, he won a ring. He had great defense, won Gold Gloves, and
That was the best second baseman in the league at one point.
Yeah, but
there's no other second
thinking,
baseman in the Yankee history that I would put above Robinson Cano.
Well, I was thinking more of like the long time of his career with the Yankees. I don't know where he ranks all time as Yankee second baseman's base hits, home runs, RBIs. I think for the stint that he did it and the time that we had him in his career was great. But I am so glad that he went to Seattle. I'm so glad we avoided that mega deal.
And there was a big one that you forgot. Big one. In the interest of time, I'm going to give it to you. You said nothing about Donnie Baseball.
No, I did say Donnie Baseball.
Did you?
I said I'm not giving him first base because he didn't win a ring, and I don't want him to have it.
All right, so real quick, what's your rotation look like?
Oh, starting 5. Whitey Ford, the chairman of the board.
Yep.
Not going to throw Ruth in there. I'll put Randy Johnson, even though he wasn't.
Oh, that's a quick tenure.
Yeah.
No Andy Pettit.
Pettit gets in, of course.
Red Ruffing, Ron Guidry.
Oh, 18 strikeouts. Holy cow. Got to add Guidry in there. So there's
Lefty
the 5.
Gomez.
No. And then in the bullpen, obviously, you got Goose Gossage and Mariano Rivera, and we've had, Rafael Soriano and David Robertson.
So we appreciate everybody tuning in to the first ever Mets Beat podcast, live from Govs here in Levittown. We're going to be taking a quick break. We're going to go right into limo talk, and we'll see you soon. Peace.
That can only mean one thing. Ever since I left the city.